We've all been there, haven't we? That little voice thinking, if I just had a bit more cash, or, if I finally got that promotion, then everything would click. That feeling of better always seems tied to getting more. But what if that whole path, the one everyone seems to be on towards financial success, what if it doesn't actually lead to happiness? What if the real goal and how you get there is totally different from what we're usually told? So today we're doing a deep dive into the psychology of wealth and freedom. And look, this isn't just about dollars and cents. It's a really fascinating look at what it truly means to be wealthy and properly free in a world that feels, well, pretty unpredictable these days, our mission. It's basically to challenge some ideas that we maybe take for granted. We're going to dig into insights from some really interesting sources that suggest maybe, just maybe, managing what we want and what we expect is way more important than just stacking up cash. And how being resilient, truly resilient, is key for dealing with, well, everything life throws at us. Get ready for some stuff that might surprise you, might make you rethink how you're chasing contentment. I found some of this really eye-opening.
Absolutely. And what's so interesting is how the sources pull together ideas about financial independence with a deeper sense of psychological well-being. It really does move beyond just looking at your bank statement. It's about your overall quality of life.
Yeah.
Finding that stability, that satisfaction that isn't just bouncing around with the stock market or what everyone else seems to be doing. It makes you ask, what does being rich actually mean
Yeah.
in a human way?
Okay, let's dive right into that challenge then. Because the source material, bam, it hits a core belief right away. When I say financial freedom, what pops into your head? Seriously, what does it look like for you? Is it some magic number, a certain house, never having to check a price tag? For a lot of people, yeah, it's about having almost unlimited resources. But these sources we're looking at, they paint a very different picture.
They really do. The core idea, and it's kind of surprising at first, is that real financial independence seems to be more about uh, getting a handle on your expectations and desires
Hmm.
than it is about just piling up a massive fortune. It's a huge shift, isn't it? Moving from this external game of collecting more stuff, more money, to an internal focus on, well, cultivating contentment. Like, think of it as adjusting your own internal happiness thermostat instead of trying to heat the whole planet.
Yeah, and the sources use this really powerful contrast. It's almost provocative. They talk about happy, financially modest people alongside stressed billionaire. Just picture that for a second. Why would someone with, way less money, someone maybe living a pretty simple life financially, why might they feel more genuinely content than someone with billions?
It's a real psychological puzzle, right? Because
Uh-huh.
often for the billionaire, that huge wealth comes with, well, equally huge burdens. The pressure to keep it, the fear of losing it, the sheer complexity, the scrutiny. It's a lot. It's such an important point because it shows that the sheer amount of money doesn't just equal more well-being. It's not linear like that. From like an evolutionary angle, once your basic needs are covered, piling on more wealth often just brings a whole new set of pressures. Things related to status, to social comparison, to security theater almost. For that billionaire, the stress might be about constantly needing more than their peers, or this deep fear of falling off that social ladder. But the modest person, they might have a stronger sense of purpose from their community, or maybe clearer values that aren't tied to money. Or maybe just fewer of those really complex, high-stakes worries that come with managing vast wealth. Their happiness isn't some constantly shifting financial target. It's more stable, more internal.
That really changes the perspective, doesn't it? Maybe you've seen this yourself. Someone who looks like they have everything, but they're just weighed down by anxiety. And then someone else living much more simply, but they just seem genuinely peaceful. It suggests our standard definition of success might need a serious rethink. It's maybe less about what you have and way more about how you feel about what you have. And crucially, what you expect to have. Okay, so if piling up wealth doesn't automatically equal happiness, and sometimes even adds stress, then what is driving us? Why do we keep chasing more, even when we technically have enough? This is where the sources get really interesting, digging into our basic human psychology.
Yeah, the sources point pretty strongly to our deep-seated evolutionary drive for status. That's often a primary motivator, even if we don't consciously realize it. It's not new.
Mm.
It's wired into us. Back in history, higher status meant better survival odds, right? More resources, more protection, better mating opportunities, all that. And even though our world is totally different now, that ancient brain wiring still kind of nudges us. We're chasing certain financial goals, partly because of that. We're not just buying a fancy car. Often we're buying a signal of where we fit in the social hierarchy, of achievement, of belonging.
That makes a lot of sense. And what's the result of chasing status like that, according to the research? It often leads straight into what the sources call unfulfilling consumption. So this isn't about buying things we genuinely need or even things we truly get joy from just for themselves. No, it's about buying stuff that projects an image that keeps us up to date with what society expects or, lets us look good compared to others. And that kind of spending, driven by what others think, it often leaves us feeling kind of empty because the real need isn't being met. It's just this temporary hit of social approval that fades fast, and then we're looking for the next status symbol.
Precisely. And the big problem with chasing status through buying stuff is you're essentially letting external things dictate your self-worth.
Hmm.
Your happiness becomes dependent on objects, on other people's opinions, and those things, external validation, other people's views, they're naturally unstable, always changing. It's an arms race you can't win.
Right.
The goalposts just keep moving. So this cycle of unfulfilling consumption, it's a trap. It never really satisfies that deep internal need for security or real belonging. It just feeds the surface level status thing.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? I mean, maybe take a second to consider your own spending habits or things you aspire to own. Are they really about utility or comfort or genuine joy? Or is there maybe a little bit of that keeping up feeling mixed in, that need to show something or reach a certain social level? It's not about feeling guilty, just becoming more aware. Recognizing how strong that evolutionary pull is can be the first step to consciously choosing not to play that game.
Okay, so if chasing status and just endlessly accumulating more doesn't bring lasting contentment, what does? What path do the sources suggest is more effective? If we're trying to step out of that status trap, what's the alternative they point towards?
Well, the sources really highlight the idea that cultivating a deep sense of control and simplicity is key to finding greater contentment. This is offered up as like a direct antidote to that constant striving, that empty consumption we were just talking about. Instead of trying to control everything outside yourself or just getting more, the focus shifts inward. It shifts to gaining control internally and deliberately simplifying your life. Control and simplicity. I really like that. Let's unpack control a bit more. It's clearly not about, bossing people around or trying to time the market perfectly.
Yeah.
It's more about feeling like you're in the driver's seat of your own financial life, right? Your choices, and maybe most importantly, your desires. Making conscious decisions about earning, saving, spending, instead of just getting pushed around by ads or what everyone else is doing. And then simplicity fits right in there, helping manage those desires. Choosing less, maybe, or just choosing more mindfully, cutting out the noise, the complexity, which frees up headspace, and maybe money too, for what actually matters to you.
Exactly right. That internal sense of control is powerful. When you actively manage what you want, you're basically taking charge of your own happiness settings instead of letting external stuff dictate how you feel. And simplicity becomes the way you actually do that. You deliberately cut back the unnecessary clutter in your finances and your material life. This doesn't just lower stress, it creates room, space, and energy for things, for relationships that actually align with your deeper values. It's about consciously designing your life so your resources serve a real purpose, not just constantly being drained chasing external approval.
It's a really useful framework, and I think it prompts a good question for you listening right now. Where in your own life could a bit more control or a bit more simplicity genuinely cut down stress and boost satisfaction? Maybe it's finally canceling those subscriptions you forgot about, or rethinking certain spending habits. Even just decluttering a room can sometimes feel like decluttering your finances a bit. When you look at your money choices, are there ways to simplify your budget, maybe your investments, just to get more clarity, more peace, more of that feeling of control? Okay, let's connect these psychological ideas to practical steps. Because let's face it, we live in a world that's constantly changing, often unpredictable, sometimes downright turbulent. So what concrete things can we actually do to build that genuine, solid sense of financial freedom? Not just for smooth sailing, but for whatever comes next.
Yeah, this is where the sources really drive home the crucial need to build financial resilience. This isn't about get-rich-quick schemes. It's about building this robust adaptability, this security, to handle the inevitable ups and downs. Real freedom in this light often comes from knowing you can handle a storm, not just hoping the skies stay clear forever.
Such a key difference. It's not avoiding problems, it's strategic preparation. And the sources are specific about how to build this resilience, right? Mostly through proactive savings and having solid backup plans. These aren't just for growing wealth, they're fundamentally about creating safety nets, layers of security, having that emergency fund, maybe diversifying how you save, thinking through what if scenarios, losing a job, health issues, market dips. That foundation gives you psychological wealth too. It gives you options, cuts anxiety, and stops small bumps from becoming huge crises.
And what's What's really insightful is framing this resilience as especially vital in an unpredictable economy. It underscores the idea of proactive preparation, not just reacting when things go wrong. Too often, people only start thinking about shoring up their finances when trouble's already knocking.
Yeah.
But true resilience, the kind the sources describe, is built before you need it, with foresight. It's like building a strong foundation before the earthquake hits, not trying to find bricks while the ground is shaking. Taking that proactive stance gives you a huge amount of real freedom. It lets you make choices from a place of strength, not fear or panic, even when everything outside feels uncertain.
And that ties back so well to what we said about control, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Building resilience is taking control, taking agency over your financial future, instead of just being tossed around by economic waves. It's that conscious choice. I'm going to prepare, be ready, be robust, instead of just reacting. That feeling of preparedness, that internal control that feels like a much deeper part of real financial freedom than just hitting some arbitrary number in an account. Wow. So we've covered a lot in this deep dive into the psychology of wealth and freedom, a really fascinating journey. We started by kind of questioning the usual definition of financial freedom, didn't we? Reframing it around managing our expectations, our desires, not just chasing bigger numbers. Then we looked at that sneaky status drive, that evolutionary pull that can trap us in buying stuff that doesn't actually make us happy, that unfulfilling consumption. From there, we saw how focusing on control and simplicity in our financial lives might be the path to more genuine, lasting contentment. And finally, we tied it all back to the real world, the practical need to build solid financial resilience through savings and backup plans, especially because the world is, well, unpredictable.
It's really compelling when you see how all these pieces fit together, isn't it? They offer this much more holistic and, frankly, psychologically healthier way to think about wealth and freedom than just obsessing over asset growth or what other people think. It really shifts the whole game from chasing external stuff to building internal well-being, agency, and genuine security. And that leaves us with a really important question for you, the listener, to chew on. If true financial freedom really comes more from managing our desires than just maximizing our bank balance, what's maybe one desire, just one thing you want that you could choose to simplify right now? What's one small step you could take towards simplifying that desire to gain just a little bit more control and maybe a little bit more contentment in your own life?